Good morning and welcome back to our Sunday school class. Today we are going to be talking about the parable of the wheat and tares. And let me look. I like to do this before. The lesson we should learn, what they say is, the lesson we should learn from this parable is children of God and of the devil in the church until the judgment, when the latter shall be burned.
Okay.
All right.
That's like table discussion.
The lesson we should learn is you're going to hell.
Or not.
Or not.
Well,
That's kind of the gist of the Bible. Though.
Yeah.
that is kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Song of Solomon, I love my beloved. You're going to hell. It's kind of this.
Right.
So we're going to go to Matthew chapter 13, 24. See, 24 through 30. And then I wanted to show you something because I thought it was pretty interesting. And then it's going to be 36 through 43. So 24 through 30.
Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence then hath it tares? He said unto them, An enemy hath done this. The servants said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest while you gather up the tares, you root up also the wheat with them. For both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of harvest I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn.
This was back in a time where pranks were really cool. Like, now they have all these devious licks where they just break something. But then, like, oh my goodness. Imagine having an enemy so bad he went and sowed something bad in your field. That would be the worst. They don't do it. Nothing like that is like that level of petty. Like, it's just amazing.
Well, except for those like YouTube couple pranks who are like,
Yeah.
Baby, I killed your mom.
The Mark Rober package theft thing. That's the equivalent.
So, I just lost my train of thought.
Tares, you said you were going to close something.
Oh, well, no, what was, so we read what the parable was, but did you notice that in the middle of this parable is another parable?
Yeah.
And then it goes to explain the parable before, because it talks about the parable of the mustard seed, right?
Yes.
Yes. And then it goes to explain, which I thought was so crazy, then it goes to explain what the parable of the tares, the wheat and tares was talking about.
It's because he told everybody, like all the people, he told them a bunch of parables, and then they asked about the tares.
And then they went back to the other one so he could
me and Thomas
explain it.
I have no idea. What are the tares mean?
Can we scoot this way?
I don't think it means anything. Oh, that. I thought it was going to be an actual doubting.
And so I thought that was pretty interesting. But the people, I guess they understood the parable of the mustard seed better than they understood the wheat and the tares. Because they went right back to where he had to go back and explain it. And so then we go to verses 36 and to 40, right? 36 to 43.
Then Jesus sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, Declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. Then told another. Yeah, listen. That was compared to last week. That was a really good movie.
Okay.
So he explains what. Okay, so the sower, the one that sows the seed, is the Son of Man, which is Jesus. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom. The tares are the children of the wicked one. And the reapers are the angels, which is explained pretty. It's explained pretty well.
You know, it seems like a game. Because it almost seems like a game. Because right after that, he tells like 6 more parables that are the exact same thing. It's like you have the same starting sentence, but you have to write something different every time.
Yeah.
It's like it is. It's like, all right, this is what it's
this,
like, and then he does a couple more. You understand?
I'm gonna say this parable is only in Matthew.
Yeah.
And so, but I was just looking at that. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And so, but then I was trying to figure out what it was really saying, and then that's when I went to the other verses and explained it.
I wonder if they knew too. I mean, in some of these things where they asked Jesus something like, "Explain this." Because, like, yeah, at a certain point you realize that Jesus can say anything better than anyone else when he explains. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's almost like a song when you hear the lyrics of it and you know what it means, but you ask the songwriter what they mean by it. Like, it's obvious what the song is about for the most part. I mean, you can usually tell. But then they ask the songwriter because they have different insight into it than you would expect.
Yes, because
So
they're the ones that wrote
because the
it.
parables, I mean, maybe I'm just looking at it with historical context, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory as far as that, because he's saying the kingdom of heaven is like this. Now I'm wondering if they were just saying, declare unto us the parable of the tares because they just wanted to hear him say, you know, this is what it is. And from that they got like 16 other parables, you know.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. When I'm talking about something like that, everyone has a different perspective on things. So, like, if I'm talking about, say, for example, I was talking to my friend about the theory of knowledge the other day, and I knew what I thought about it, but I still asked them what they thought about it, because, like, I knew the basis of the theory, but I wanted to hear their perspective and their opinion. So, I mean, if I was walking around with Jesus, I'd be asking him on a whole lot of things.
Yeah, because
not to mention a story that he told me.
Yes, and the way that he explains it, like he'll say it, he'll give you the parable, but then he'll explain it. He explains
Jesus
it better
around
than
today. How many times would it be on, like, you know, on the news asking for his opinion on things? Like, what's your opinion on the current geopolitical situation? Like, it would just be all the time. That's what everybody would ask about that. How it would always be just like, what is your opinion on this? Yeah, exactly. Like, what is your... It's like how they have, like, all these people who are just, you know, like Ben Carson talking about this stuff or something like that. He's a doctor. He's not, you know, they'll ask him about this or that. And it's kind of like that where, but times 10, you know, when you're really wanting, because you know the opinion will be perfect, so you're saying...
Well, it's like, too, when you ask...
You'll be constant.
Talk about Donald Trump. Yes, we do talk about Donald Trump. And how he, when you look at when the state's finances,
sure, that
was somebody that you could talk about finances with.
Sure.
And when you talked to him about it, you saw how the finances were when he was in office.
Sure. And
how it's because he knew what he was doing, He was
a businessman.
Yeah, he was a businessman, and he understood those kind of things. And so with Jesus,
was not his strong
suit.
But
with Jesus, his stories, he'll tell you a story, but then when you ask him, Lord, what does this mean? What is this about? He'll give it to you in full detail to where you're going to understand what he's talking about. And
what was interesting
that's
is that
thing
whole
too.
thing is all these things spake Jesus unto the multitude of parables, and without a parable spake he not unto them. He didn't say anything normal. He wasn't a normal guy for that. He just talked in parables.
Well, when you talk about the wheat field and all that stuff, that was very important back in the day. Like back in Bible times. Their fields and their wheat, their corn, their vegetables, their fruit, and different things like that. Those are very important to them. And then to have tares in their wheat they're like, what is going on? And they had people that would come and destroy their fields because maybe they wouldn't give them something that they desperately needed. And so they would have people come and destroy their whole property because of it. When
or even just like for competitive business.
Yeah. Well, the vineyard. When come on.
Oh, what's his name?
Naboth.
What's it?
Yeah, well, King Ahab wanted
Ahab.
Naboth.
King Ahab wanted Naboth's vineyard, but they would not give it up.
She cried.
And so his wonderful wife, Jezebel,
I feel like we've had a couple of those. What?
his wonderful wife Jezebel went and got it for him.
Lovely. So
Yeah.
lovely. We love
I
Jezebel.
hate you crying like a baby. Come on, I'll kill the baby.
Right? And so Jezebel went and got it for him. But in order for her to get that, she killed the man.
You know what's funny is the whole Ahab Jezebel thing. That compared to the body count that the kings now have, it's not even close. I mean, like, they were evil, but like now they just have full on, like Henry VIII or whatever. He was not only killing the vineyard guy, he was killing his own wives. Like, it was like, they weren't even that evil comparatively.
They just became more.
But they're like the epitome of evil, but they don't do anything, and I know we will.
Right. But people, their fields were very important to them. And so for Jesus to use it as a parable, it was in a way to help them understand what he's talking about.
That's just so funny about how that without a parable statement here, and we're probably walking up to him.
Well, can you imagine
Jesus,
him
do you want to
speaking?
get some food? We're kind of hungry. And he's like, my stomach is like unto a field of rocks. Neither needed it any water or any food. And like, they're just like, well, we don't know what you're talking
I think he
about.
may have done that because sometimes when he spoke, people just looked at him like,
Yeah, that must have been so funny too. Could you imagine?
like, what did he just
He meant
say?
to the multitude.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just mean, like, it's just, he said, the kingdom is heaven like unto leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal till the whole was leavened, and then just nothing else, just sits there while the multitude looks shocked. They have no idea what he was just saying.
Well, that makes sense.
Well, think of the multitude, though. They don't know what he's talking about. They're the multitude.
That's why he explains his parables.
Right, that's what I mean. He must have had so much fun. Instead of just saying, like, oh, this is...
He has
he's just
a
looking at
translator off to the
Yeah,
side.
right.
He's
He doesn't
like,
just leave them hanging. He actually explains to them because he wanted souls to be saved. And so for him to put them in parables for the people to understand them was very important to him. And we can take this lesson also because we are Christian people and we're in a place where there's tares among us. And when it's saying that, there's people that doesn't want anything to do with God. Nothing. Doesn't matter what it is. They don't have, and we are the wheat that's trying to grow and try to get rid of these, not really rid of them, but trying to witness to the ones that know nothing about God or don't believe they need to know anything about God. And so we are put here to be able to help those that are in need of Jesus, need to know who he is and what he's done and what he can do for them. And we can only really do that so much. And when the day comes, Jesus is going to come back and gather his people that have accepted him and that have led their life according to the way that he wants it to be led. Not that there won't be any bumps in the road when you're walking with Christ, because there's going to be bumps in the road, but we can either get over those bumps and continue going through life with Christ, or we can just stop right there and don't even just give up. Whereas when Jesus comes back and gathers his people, the ones that do not accept him, the ones that still, after you told them over and over again about who he was and everything like that, then that's when it goes and talks about, as therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world.
Yeah, and the whole thing about the wheat and the tares is you can't tell until it starts bearing fruit.
Yep.
Because if they don't, then they're tares.
Then they're tares.
Because you can't tell when they're growing as a plant, but then when they actually flower.
It's such an amazing part. Just such an amazing dude.
Like somebody that was just.
It's just amazing to do. Because you can't tell.
I wish I had a picture. The tares
it's like
and
replacing the
wheat
hard-boiled egg
similar
with a raw one.
before they grow.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I mean?
the whole thing.
It's because tares and wheat look similar when they grow. But wheat gives off something, whereas the tares would not.
Yeah, this is...
Okay, let's see. Which one's the tares, which one's the... Okay,
that's
so
the wheat.
That's the wheat.
That's the tare. I don't know if y'all can see this at all.
Just show it. Just show them which one's the wheat.
On my dress.
Which one's the wheat and which one's the tares.
It's stuck under the table.
Oh, well.
Nice.
Just so you can see that they look alike.
So we have on this side, this is the wheat, which is bringing forth fruit. Oh, I just tapped a link. And that's the tares.
Right.
And they're so similar that you can't tell.
You can't tell
I'm
until
sure that like a little bit before this picture was taken, they looked identical because they hadn't brought forth fruit yet.
Right. And so sometimes you can't tell the difference.
Yeah, this is what they look like when they're growing. So
oh wow! So they look a lot alike.
Yeah.
That's wild.
So you really can't tell.
No.
That's just plants.
Right. That's why they did that.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. But once we do bear fruit, then people will know, well, why does it say, it says, oh, come on, why? I can't get my mind straight today for some reason. But it's being separate. Like when you want to be separate, you want to stand out. Not stand out to get the attention. Stand out because there's something different about you. And
because he told them to grow with the tares.
With the tares, yes. And so that's like us. Right now, what are we doing?
Right.
But we're bearing fruit, so we're going to be different than the tares. And
if we didn't bear fruit, then no one would be able to tell if it was wheat.
Right.
Yeah. So it could, it's maybe not necessarily unsaved people. It could be people who are saved, but if they're not bearing fruit, there's no way to tell.
Yeah. That's a good point.
It's impossible to tell from the tares because they've done nothing.
That's a good point. What Bill just said, I don't know if y'all heard him, but what he was saying that the tares doesn't necessarily always have to be an unsaved person. It can also be a saved person that doesn't bear any fruit.
Because it's impossible to tell
Right.
if it's a tare or not. If it's not bearing any fruit, that's the judge.
Right.
That's a standard by which all are judged. Is the fruit you bear, not whether not whatever church you go to or anything like that.
Right.
It's what fruit you're bearing.
So it doesn't always have to be an unsaved person. It could be a saved person. Or a backsliding person.
That's true. Okay, I'm going to read Matthew Henry's commentary. This parable represents the present and future state of the gospel church. Christ's care of it, the devil's enmity against it, the mixture there is in it of good and bad in this world, and the separation between them in the other world. So prone is fallen man to sin that if the enemy sow the tares, he may go his way, they will spring up and do hurt. Whereas when good seed is sown, it must be tended, watered, and fenced. The servants complained to their master, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in thy field? No doubt he did. Whatever is amiss in the church, we are sure it is not from Christ. Though gross transgressors and such as openly oppose the gospel ought to be separated from the society of the faithful, yet no human skill can make an exact separation. Those who oppose must not be cut off, but instructed in that with meekness. So that's like growing with the tares.
Yeah.
And though good and bad are together in this world, yet at the great day they shall be parted. Then the righteous and the wicked shall be plainly known. Here sometimes it is hard to distinguish between them. Let us, knowing the terrors of the Lord, not do iniquity. At death believers shall shine forth to themselves. At the great day they shall shine forth before all the world. Oh, that's interesting. They shall shine by reflection with light borrowed from the fountain of light. Their sanctification will be made perfect, and their justification published. May we be found in that happy number.
Good job, Matthew.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I like the way they worded that.
The reflection,
At death believers shall shine forth to themselves. At the great day they shall shine forth before the world. They shall shine by reflection with light borrowed from the fountain of light.
Yep. And there's that.
Yeah.
That's good. That's
That
really
is
good.
good. So that was a good good explanation of that.
And then,
Yeah,
you know,
from now on, we're just gonna use
probably
math and
say
Greek.
now
Yeah.
his parables are metaphors because that's kind of how they're used now.
Yeah.
We don't really
Well,
call parables anymore.
Those
A
who
little
oppose
bit like
must not be cut off, but instructed in that with meekness. Yeah.
And it's like there's not a lot of jobs that we know it's going to be a Christian environment. And so we have to be the ones to, I mean, nothing outrageous, I should say, but we have to be the ones to go and shine that light. And even in our jobs that doesn't have any, but we are able to go and stand and be salt and light in that situation. Example, I was just thinking about this was Sister Barbara, her job. She's a light, and she tells about all the stories about some of the people that they don't even know God, but they go and talk to her about Him. And that's her being a light.
It's your mission field.
Yes, where your mission field doesn't always have to be in a different country. Right, in a different country, it could be right in your workplace where you're working at. It could be your mission field.
One of Papa's was Publix.
Publix,
City Publix.
right, in the parking lot, and they knew him as he was. They called him the chaplain of Publix.
But I think
And
most
so-
of the difficult work, honestly, I mean, not to say that missionary work in other places is
No,
difficult,
right.
but
Right, it's so important to have that.
it's so much easier to be accepting of something when you haven't heard it. As far as, when you hear about this, you're like, oh, man died for me. Other than, everyone has grown up in church for the most part in America. A great majority. Or at least have heard of Jesus enough to have already made their judgment on him. There's not a whole lot of times you go to somebody, tell them, and they're like, I didn't know. It's almost impossible to find, I would say. And I think that's why a lot of the missionary work being done is a work of almost slowly beating down the barriers now. Rather than, just planting the seeds, it's now pulling out the tares, and trying to get people converted, because now conversion isn't just a knock on the door, tell them, and then they're going to do it.
Right.
It's a full process of trying to get someone to accept Jesus. And when it comes to missionary work, you have, and I mean, amazing things going on.
Yes.
But when you tell them about Jesus, they're accepting of it. They're like, and there is still
The mission fields
hardship.
here are just as
There's still
important.
hardship, but the danger is thinking that you're in the right and you are in God's protection when you're not. And that's a big danger in America, because as a Christian nation, people will say, oh, I went to church when I was 4 years old, so I'm saved or whatever.
Yeah.
Did this, and they're not living right, but because they think they're right. That's one of the most dangerous things, is to think you're doing something that's correct and be doing something completely wrong, because there's no way to change your mind about that without hard work and dedication to what you're doing. And that's why it's so important now to have missionaries just at the Publix. I mean, just to
Your
show somebody's
your school, your work, wherever.
most of the witnessing is done in how you present yourself, not your words or actions. As far as telling somebody about Jesus now, it's why is this the right way to go?
Right.
Not what is the way to go.
Right.
Because there's so many different options now when it comes to religion that people have made, that it's a choice. I mean, you have to figure out what you're going to do. It's almost like a phone company. There's so many different options now. You're like, do I do Verizon or this?
Right.
Which
There's
is
so
better.
many-
Which is
there's so
better,
many
and that's what you have
options.
to convince somebody that it's better by using the facts and evidence and saying this is the better way to go.
Right.
And that's what missionary work is now, a lot of it, because the world has, I think, primarily heard about Jesus, for the most part. But it's the work that is being done now that is trying to convince people that Jesus is the right way to go for us.
So let us be a light wherever we go.
Right.
Whoever we're with, let us always be a light, because we never really know all the people that we are with, and what people have been going through. And so we have to make sure that we bear that fruit of Christ, show them the love of Christ, and it'll help someone. We don't know who. Sometimes we don't know how, because we'll talk about things and don't even realize that it's helped someone. So we hope you have a wonderful day, and please join us in our Sunday morning worship service.